No! No! No!
Hello everybody! Today I'm going to be going over some more aviation stuff. I'm going to be talking about the Burly crash regarding a Cessna Caravan that crashed in April of 2022, killing a young woman. I've already done a video on this, but some new information has come up regarding this accident, and I'm not really here to blame anybody or anything like that, but what I'm seeing here is that the line and dock wasn't done properly, and dealing with snow on a runway, you don't fly around at 20 feet doing a low inspection like that. That is very dangerous. You just saw that in my introduction near me saying no, no, no. Yeah, that is a big no-no. And what's really discouraging about all this is that I didn't know that she actually made it to the runway. I thought she was having problems achieving visibility at her MDA to land on her first attempt. But you can see in the video she was right there. All she had to do was land. And she went up and she flew around for another 20 minutes to get her IFR clearance for her second landing. And then she came in and hit the towers. If she would have done my technique, she never would have been doing that. First of all, that technique she's doing is a lot more difficult than the one I'm going to show you today. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to give you some valuable tips in case you're flying pretty much any airplane into a runway that's covered in snow and you're not too sure how deep it is. If you're going to do an overhead inspection, you really can't tell the depth of the snow unless you physically stick something into the snow. Alright? You just can't tell. And flying behind the power curve at 20 feet with 10 degrees of flap, your concentration is basically trying to keep the plane in the air or not wander away off the runway. Okay, so I'm going to be going over how to do this today. I got some stuff I'm going to put up on the screen here for you. I'm going to put up the first slide here, and this is basically your procedures. So, 1, make a firm landing. 2, if landing feels completely soft, overshoot, snow is too deep. 3, if landing feels soft but you feel the concrete on your bum, snow is shallow, commence full stop procedure. Alright, so that's the first slide right there of your procedure. I'm just going to go over that with you right now, what I'm saying here. So, this helicopter we're using today as a fixed wing Caravan. I don't have a little toy Caravan, but I'm going to explain why you have to do what I'm telling you here. So, you're going to be coming down and you're going to land on a runway, but you don't know how snowy it is or how deep the snow is. You don't want to touch down too lightly, because if you touch down too lightly, you'll sink into the snow and you'll find out it's too late, and you'll try to power out and you can't, and you're just going to get stuck there. And that would be an extreme case of, like, say, 2 feet of snow or something like that. All right. So you want to do a firm landing, and the firm landing is to put your main wheels. It's actually on a Caravan. Those are big giant tires. They're great for this. I used to fly Caravans all the time into gravel strips with snow on it, so this works really well. And the reason why you want to come in and you want to do a firm landing is because you want to touch down quickly, feel if you can feel the runway. If not, you still have enough speed and inertia with your power to pull your way out of that snow without ending up getting stuck. Alright? So that's very important, to make a firm landing, not a grease landing. And everybody likes doing grease landings, but not in a snowy runway. You want to make a firm landing so you can feel it. So it's psychologically trying, because when you land on a runway that's too deep of snow, it's going to feel very pleasant when you touch down. It's going to feel like landing on a pillow of feathers. That's when you know that the snow is too deep. But if you do a firm landing and all of a sudden you feel the concrete under your bum, well, now you know that it's only a few inches of snow, and you can commence the stopping procedure, full stop procedure. Okay? I got a little experiment here for you today. I got a can of beans and I got a milk bag. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you what it's like landing on a snowy runway with either thick snow or shallow snow. Alright? So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put some air in this bag here to demonstrate a snow-covered runway. You can see it's quite a bit of snow. Now I'm going to take my can of beans and I'm going to drop it on this bag and listen. Oops, that's a bad example. I hit the hit the table. Take two. Okay, so there's your snow runway. It's deep snow. All right. You just basically, the bag holds it up. You don't hear anything. Now I'm going to take some air out and represent a runway with just a little bit of snow on it. And now listen to the can. Big difference, right? Well, that's what you're going to feel on your bum when you're landing on a runway that has shallow snow. You're going to actually feel the concrete underneath you. But if it's deep, it's going to feel like a pillow of cushions. See? And that means when you feel that, it's time to go up. It's too deep to land on. The Caravan can land in a foot of snow, but it can't take off in a foot of snow. The Caravan can land in about 5 inches of snow and take off in 5 inches of snow. So if you're going to do a trip, you want to have about 5-6 inches of snow tops, because you got a lot of drag on the runway and you might not be able to get airborne if it's too much drag. Alright, so that's just a little example of what you have to feel for when you're actually landing. But let's just go with the next slide here. We're going to pretend that we felt the runway land. And this is basically your procedures. Closed throttle, flaps up, no brakes, no reverse thrust, because if you use reverse thrust it could twist you, and get your condition lever back to low idle. And then you use your rudders to keep straight. If the plane starts skidding sideways, I've had planes skid sideways on me, as soon as you touch down you got lots of speed still, so you just step on the rudder and it will straighten the plane up. I guess you couldn't see that. So if the plane's sliding sideways, you just step on the rudder and it'll straighten itself out. And that's the one thing good about airplanes with big tails. They can really correct themselves if they're going down the runway sideways. Okay, and you got to watch out too, because sometimes if it's a little bit of snow, there could be a sheet of black ice underneath. And when you get crosswinds, they can blow you sideways because you have no traction on your wheels. Alright, so we're going to be going over that too and how to handle that. Alright, so now I'm going to put up the next slide. And now that you're on the runway, you want to do soft field taxi to the ramp, soft field taxi to the runway, and take off and get into ground effect and line up with your snow tracks. Alright, so if you land your plane at an airport that's full of snow, you don't want to get stuck in the taxiway or coming off the runway. You want to keep everything in a continuous motion. So if you have to turn around, you keep the roll going, you keep the power up, you keep the yoke right back in your chest, and you get off the runway and go straight to the ramp. And keep the power on and don't stop, because if you stop you might get stuck. That's the downfall of going to goofy airports like this, okay, that don't clear their snow. The other thing you can do too, or the other problem you might have too, if you're always going into places like this and you're picking up snow with your propeller, you can get pitting, and that basically terminates the life of your prop. And I believe a Caravan prop somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000. So that's another reason why we shouldn't be doing this. But business is business, right? All right, so now we got that. Now we're going to be on the ground. We're going to unload our passengers, all right, and your cargo. Now, the thing is, when you get to an airport that's all full of snow everywhere and the rampway and no one's cleared nothing, when you're climbing out of that airplane, especially down the ladder of a Caravan, take your time, because you could have black ice under a layer of snow, and boy, you want to talk about going for a disco dance? Yeah, I've done it. That's why. So when you're operating in areas like that, always take your time. If it's usually like 2 hours for turnaround, expect 3. Okay? Especially if you have elderly passengers in the back, you want to take them by the hand and get them out of the airplane and walk them to the terminal. You don't want old people falling down and breaking hips. Okay? Because airports like that, with no salting, no shoveling, it's a hazard, even after you got them down on the ground. Alright, so now there's the other big one coming up now. Is the number 4 slide, and that is takeoff procedure. yoke back into your chest, follow your tire tracks down the runway, throttle up, go into ground effect, and then once you're in ground effect, accelerate to your best rate speed and then climb out. And once you're at your safe altitude and safe airspeed, you can raise your flaps, and that's somewhere around 500 AGL. I got a mosquito in the house chasing me here. Oh boy. Alright, so now that we've done that, yeah, and that's the one thing I want to, before I go on, I'm going to mention one thing too. So, when you're going to go out to the runway, and you're ready to leave now, and you're going to taxi, remember I told you keep everything in all one, don't stop, and you're at an uncontrolled airport, so go over to 22.8 and say, hey traffic, this is Caravan on the ground, we're going to be taxiing out for runway 30, any conflicts advised. And if you hear nobody, there's no one coming, it's time to go. But if you hear a guy coming in, you might want to wait for him because you don't want to delay at the taxiway to get on the runway and then you get stuck. Alright, so just a little tip for radio work. At uncontrolled airports, it's pretty easy just to wait things out because there's not much happening there, right? But when you're making your call, make sure you can taxi out and keep the roll going and get on the runway, line up with your tracks, and then hit the coals and go down. And stay with your tracks all the way down. Alright? And soft field technique, and you always use flap. Alright? Always use flap. No flapless. Don't be afraid to use flap. And the Caravan 10 degrees, I think that's what you use for soft field. Memory serves. Alright, so now that we've done that, I'm just going to put up a sheet here. And all it is just showing you the runway. And you can see the airplane is coming in. I got roll to the end. And the wind is straight down the runway. Alright? And I got 2 taxiways. But even though you can make the first taxiway, make sure you roll all the way to the end because you're a bulldozer now. You're clearing your own roadway out once you dump everybody off. So roll to the end so you don't have to use brakes, use rudder, and then it works for you later when you take off. You stay on your tracks and the tracks are all the way down the runway now, and that should take some drag off. Alright, staying inside your tire tracks. Alright, but I'm going to put up one more sheet because we know that the world is not perfect. Right here. And here it is here. You can see I got a crosswind. And remember I talked about, I talked about having black ice underneath snow. So it could have been cold and then you got some little bit of dusting on it. And that's when it really gets slippery. So if you got a crosswind, don't be afraid to do a thing called slant final, okay? And the controllers know what that is. If you're going into a control zone or whatever, talking to the tower, tell them that you're coming in for a slant final. And you're going to go corner to corner. And you can see, when you do that, not only does it help you stay straight when you land, but when you take off again, you've got more direct wind underneath your wings to help you get airborne, okay? Because you're going to have drag on the ground there. So don't be afraid to do slant final for landing, and then when you take off, do a slant takeoff and go out that way. Because you want to keep the airplane always in the wind to keep it straight, plus you want the wind to hit you direct on to give you lift. Alright, so now that I taught you how to do that, I'm going to teach you something else that you might not want to do. It is a bit cowboy. But if you get yourself in a situation, you might want to try this. Viewer discretion is advised. Alright, so I got my airplane here. Alright, and the wind is coming from this direction. Alright, and what do we usually do on crosswinds? We always point the ailerons into the wind, and as you go down the runway, you neutralize and then lift off. Okay, snow runways, flip it around. That's right. You flip it around. Because what's going to happen is sometimes you're going to get on the runway and you're going down your tracks, but still, and you might have a load on too, it's not getting fast enough to get into ground effect. You're going to have to force one of the tires off the ground. Okay? So you're going to use Mother Nature to help you out. You're going to use that crosswind. So you got a crosswind coming from this way. You're getting a ground effect, but it's not getting fast enough to get airborne. You're kind of worried about it, right? So what you're going to do now, watch my hands. Just watch my hands. Okay, you see that? aileron and elevator all at the same time. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to free that wheel by using Mother Nature with the crosswind to pull it up, plus you're using elevator and aileron to roll that wheel in. And we use that type of technique in float flying. We call it rolling the float. Well, it works great on caravans and snow too. Alright, so, and then once you free one of the wheels, all that drag is gone. It's going to start to take off and accelerate. Alright, but you're going to be close to stall or at stall. You're just flying on that cushion of air. So do not climb. I repeat, do not climb. Once you get that plane flying in ground effect, you might even be hearing the stall horn, just lower the nose and crop dust that field. Just crop dust it 2 feet off the runway if you have to. Get that speed up. There's that mosquito again. I gotcha. And then, once you got your best rate, you can climb it. Or best angle. If you got an obstacle, you can go to best angle. And then once you get to safe altitude and safe airspeed, throw up the flaps. Alright, so that's pretty much everything for today. I just wanted to go over this with you because what they're doing down there at that company is some pretty bad line and dock. And their procedures of flying over the field like that isn't going to help them, and it just makes things more dangerous, and you can see the result. If she would have done my technique, she would have landed, because she would have came in and not flown down the runway. She would have just touched down and said, oh yeah, it's good, and then closed the throttles and then went straight down. She wouldn't have went around, flew around for another 20 minutes. Alright, so if you see this video, share it with others, and the guys down there in Idaho, you might want to take some advice from me. Alright? It works. I've done it. Okay? And doing what you guys are doing down there, very dangerous, and it doesn't help you. So, that's all for now. And I also want to thank the other YouTubers, Blanco Lero, Pilot Debrief. Thank you very much. I saw your last video on this, showing her do the dance down the runway like that. Good job on your investigation. And I'm here now just to give advice on how to fix this and how to fly the plane in there. Alright, and do all this stuff. I used to do a lot of remote operations all the time, so this is a no-brainer for me, but yeah, it's good to share this information. So your information, my information, everybody's information, we all work together, we can get the accidents down and give pilots more confidence in what they're doing. So anyways, I want everybody to take care of themselves and stay tuned for my next video. So long, everybody.